The European Court of Human Rights has ruled that the Belgian government did not violate the rights of a person suffering from depression when she went ahead with the euthanasia procedure. Godelieva de Troyer died in 2012. At the time, she'd been suffering from chronic depression for around 40 years. The ECHR judges found in favour of the Belgian authorities in 3 out of 4 counts. Tom Mortier, who is de Troyer's son, took the Belgian government to court. Mortier was represented by Robert Clarke, who is the Deputy Director for ADF International in Vienna, and he joins me now. Welcome to the show. Robert, could you tell me the outcome of your case?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to 2012 when Tom's mother was euthanized. She was physically healthy. She was 64, and Tom found out about it the next day when his wife took a call from the hospital saying his mum had been euthanized. Could he come in and make the necessary arrangements? Since then, he has been pursuing some measure of justice. Nothing could bring her back, obviously, but he's pursued it through an attempted criminal complaint in Belgium. The prosecutor lost it, and then it went nowhere. A medical complaint in Belgium, it went nowhere. He was blocked from access to the file. There's a particular euthanasia form that gets filled out in all of these cases. It was blocked to him, and it was blocked by the chair of the Euthanasia Commission that approved the euthanasia. Now, one really important thing here is the guy doesn't just head the commission that blocked the document. He's not just an outspoken euthanasia advocate in Belgium. He is the doctor who euthanized Tom's mother. So the same man that euthanized her legally approved the euthanasia and then stopped Tom from accessing the document. And so it's taken 10 years, but finally, after that time, he has received at least some measure of justice from the European Court, which ruled that Belgium had violated his mother's right to life.
This is a shocking story because, this is a woman who was physically healthy, suffering from depression, and therefore potentially not in the best place to make that kind of decision. And the fact that he wasn't informed and was told the day after, this seems unfathomable to me.
It seems unfathomable to me, and it was to him. Tom lives in a country that legalized euthanasia in 2002. We've seen 2 things happen in that time. The qualifying criteria get blown open, so it's initially touted as this rare, exceptional thing, and then surely enough, it gets expanded to more and more conditions, more and more people. Belgium removed any lower age limit in 2014, so you have children as young as 7, 8, 9, 10 being euthanized in Belgium at this point. And you see the number of cases going up almost every single year. The pandemic was the only period in that 20 years of legalization where the number of cases didn't go up. So you're now at something like 7 euthanasias per day. Every single day, 7 people are being euthanized in Belgium. And you see similar things in all of the other countries that have gone down this path, like Canada and so on. And I think the reality is that the slippery slope is on display. You see that from the numbers, and you see it from the tragic facts of this case. Tom didn't oppose euthanasia. Tom said he hadn't really thought about it before this happened to his mother. He lived in Belgium. He knew it was a thing there, and he'd not given it much thought until it came to affect him. And so I've been deeply affected by speaking to him, just thinking through euthanasia. It's this idea of autonomy, that someone should just be able to do whatever they want. But we don't live in a truly autonomous society. We live in a society where we have relationships and where we have a common duty of care, of looking after one another. And when something happens to one person, of course, it affects others. And so euthanasia affects the doctors who are involved, the medical staff, and it has most definitely affected Tom in this case.
This is the issue, isn't it? It's such an emotive subject. And of course, when people do push for euthanasia laws, they are often doing so out of compassion. But the counter-argument to that, of course, is that it is open to corruption and people will needlessly die. And from what you're describing, the evidence is in on that. Would that be right?
Yeah, I agree. The judgment, and you said that the court found in favour of Belgium on 3 of the 4 counts, and that's right if you kind of divide these counts equally. But I think it's a significant loss for Belgium. For one, it's been found to violate the right to life. There is no right more valuable than the right to life. If we don't have the right to life, then we can't enjoy any other rights. But secondly, and perhaps most importantly, Belgium says that euthanasia is safe because of the safeguards. The problem is that Belgium has 2 principal safeguards, I would suggest. The first is this commission that reviews euthanasia cases and approves them after the event. How that's a measure of safety, someone else would have to tell me. And if the commission have any doubt as to the whether or not a case has complied with the law, then they can refer them to the prosecutor. So you have these twin pillars of safeguard. In this case, the two findings, or the finding of a violation of the right to life, was based on the fact that the commission was biased. It lacked independence, the court said, because the very doctor who euthanized Tom's mother sat on it and, according to the Belgian government, unanimously approved her euthanasia. And not only did the commission lack independence, but the prosecutor, who lost a file, then took 3 years to do literally nothing. We've gone through the file. It didn't take long because the prosecutor did nothing. The prosecutor was faulted by the European Court of Human Rights for failing to carry out a prompt investigation. So when Belgium says euthanasia is safe because we have these great safeguards, well, that argument doesn't hold water after this judgment from the European Court of Human Rights.
And Robert, could you just explain, given what you've just described there of the doctor who was responsible for the euthanasia sitting on the actual decision-making council, will there be any ramifications? Because that sounds like that requires some kind of further investigation, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And he has sat there for some time. He has led tours of Auschwitz, which he said were intended to provoke discussions about death and dignity. He is something of a celebrity figure in Belgium. I think he won Humanist of the Year a couple of years ago. And yet he sits on this panel. He carries out euthanasias. He's head of one of the leading euthanasia lobby organizations. He's connected to other doctors who were involved in this case and who referred amongst themselves. And so Belgium now has to look at this judgment and has to carry it out. They have to bring their law into alignment. And so while the court didn't say it has to drop its law or it has to reverse its law completely, they, at the very least, have to consider the position of this commission. And what's really left for me is, if the commission, which has now approved almost 30,000 euthanasias, if the commission lacks independence, how can we be sure that those 30,000 don't contain many, many, many more tragedies just like this? And actually, the true number's far more than that. There's a study that came out some years ago that suggests even the reporting in Belgium is probably at around 50%. There are many doctors who don't consider that their actions need reporting. There are many doctors who don't consider themselves subject to the commission in this way. So the true number is likely to be much higher. And I think in some ways this is probably the tip of the tip of the iceberg. We've seen other cases even in the last week. That 23-year-old who was euthanized after getting caught up in the Brussels airport bombing by ISIS, not physically injured, but struggling from a mental health perspective. 23 years old and euthanized in Belgium.
But that's particularly shocking. I mean, do any mental health campaigners have anything to say about this? The fact that people with mental health concerns who are not physically harmed can nonetheless be caught up in this kind of legislation?
There is a battle raging in Belgium in different ways. The Belgian media is relatively uncritical when it comes to euthanasia. It's something that Tom struggled with. He's tried to tell his story in Belgium, not because he started off having any issue with euthanasia, but because he feels he has a duty to share what he's experienced. And he's tried to share that in Belgium, and he's struggled to find anyone or to find many platforms where he can do that. Yet when he tells it outside of Belgium, there's a lot more interest, because we really have an example of what euthanasia in practice looks like. You know, we have countries that have looked at it, Bill in Scotland and a number of other European countries right now. And what I say to them is, you don't have to come up with some hypothetical slippery slope. You don't have to imagine what it looks like. We have countries, a handful, but a handful with a 20-year history. So let's look at what happened. And on the mental health front, the number of cases are going up. And not only is the number of cases going up in Belgium for mental health conditions, there is a movement to try and expand the law. So we have people talking about euthanasia for dementia. You have people talking about or the possibility to sign what they call advance directives. So you sign and you say, I'd like to be euthanized in these circumstances, which presupposes you won't be mentally competent at that point, but you will be euthanized on the basis of what you'd written 5, 10, or potentially more years prior to that moment. So the mental health part is particularly concerning. There have been a number of professors and others who've spoken out in Belgium recently. In fact, a member of the commission who's spoken out to say, I have some hesitations with this. But in Belgium, it's largely uncritical. And I think that should be a wake-up call to all of us, really.
Well, Robert Clarke, thanks very much for coming on to talk about this largely unknown issue. Thank you very much.